I'll start here. That way you're in front of the microphone.
Okay.
We'll just slide in.
Is you both speaking?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
but we will
yeah, just
move.
put their microphone wherever is best for the both of you.
It's a microphone for the speakers?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yep. You can adjust it however you need to while you're talking if you feel like.
Great.
Okay. Okay, so I think we should start. So welcome to this evening. Wonderful that it's the last talk today. So we will be speaking about QuickBooks to Odoo migration. So first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Oleg, the CEO of the company VentureTech, and we are doing Odoo already for 12 years, so for a long time. And together with BJ, we decided to show to you our experience related to the QuickBooks migration. Mostly it is based on some lessons learned. Of course, there were a lot of things, there were failed, successful migration. So we have some danger zones that we are going to describe. So, William?
Thank you so much, Oleg. Great to see everyone here, and thank you and congratulations for making it to this last talk of the day. Again. So I actually started out as a customer of VentureTech and enjoyed working with the team so much, as well as with Odoo, that I've continued on the journey and just like Oleg said, wanted to share some experiences helping companies transition from QuickBooks, which is pretty ubiquitous in small business accounting here in the US, moving to an integrated ERP platform that we all know and love, Odoo. So why might a company get interested in Odoo accounting? We'll spend a few minutes talking about that, and then we're going to walk through a basic project plan for what an integration typically looks like, or a migration typically looks like, as you go through organizational buy-in, gathering requirements, configuration and design, data migration and integration, and finally validation and launch. And then we'll close with a quick, very practical implementation checklist that you can use to assess your organization's readiness to move from your existing accounting system to Odoo. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Well, as we set the stage here, let's assume that we are a mid-sized manufacturing and distribution company. Perhaps you've got about 25 to 50 million in revenue, about 50 employees, and you have been using QuickBooks forever. It's what everyone in the organization knows and loves. And as your organization has grown up, now you have other systems in the mix besides QuickBooks. Maybe you have a separate inventory management system, and you have organic processes that have grown up over the years using Excel and spreadsheets and documents that move around the company. So this is where you start, and this is where a lot of companies find themselves, and they understand to take the next leap forward in operational efficiency, they really need to start thinking about how their different systems can better work together and how they can integrate on a single platform. Why might Odoo be a good fit? Well, some things that I've seen in my own personal experience, inventory management is huge, probably the biggest single reason. It's a lot easier to have all of your accounting accurate when your inventory is real-time and up-to-date. Another issue that comes into play as you grow is accounting for things like landed costs. That's an area that QuickBooks doesn't handle all that well. Maybe you've been doing processes like estimated landing costs and then having to go out and go back and true that up every reporting period. That's something that Odoo does quite well. And then there's integrations with trading partners, things like EDI that become increasingly important as you grow. Odoo is a natural fit for that. So these are typical situations that companies find themselves in. So then you get to the position in your company where you're thinking, gosh, it's time to start selling this idea of moving my organization from our current array of systems onto a single platform. I need organizational buy-in. So anyone ever been in this position of having to get organizational buy-in for a new system? The good thing about Odoo is that there is something in Odoo's feature set to benefit everyone. You'll find things that your warehouse folks will love, that purchasing will like, that accounting will like. And the best place to start this conversation, as I've seen, is to really start by looking at your current processes. If you're taking notes, ask yourself this question: do I have functional requirements, written functional requirements for my current processes? If you do, you are well ahead in being able to say, okay, this is how my business currently runs, and then you're in a much better position to start to talk about the improvements that you can make for those current processes. Now, the one thing I will say is that this can be a danger zone if you simply give some high-level demos to folks in various departments. They can see and appreciate that a particular feature looks like it'll work for them and say, oh, that sounds great, and that can leave them prematurely optimistic about how their life is going to change if they really don't know and understand the nuances of how this total transformation is going to take place. So start with that idea of functional requirements and ask yourself the question, do I have a good sense of what I'm currently doing, where the gaps are in those processes, and how I can improve my processes with a new system? So then this process leads naturally to the next step, right? The next step, gathering your requirements. You might have these requirements documented already. If you don't, now is when you start to do it. And the first thing you're going to run into that I've seen over and over and over again is that what department tends to be very busy all the time? Finance and accounting. Finance and accounting are always very busy, but yet accounting is the ultimate consumer of all of the data that's going to be put into your new ERP system from all departments. So if you're smart, you will insist and recognize that accounting needs to be at the table during all of the departmental requirement gathering so that everyone can understand and be on the same page about proposed process improvements and how that's going to change people's life. The thing you do not want to hear is you do not want to hear a very optimistic controller or CFO say, oh, don't worry about it. Accounting's just journal entries. We'll figure it out. It's easy. That is the recipe for bad things happening down the road. So here's an example. One example, out of the box, Odoo accounting is going to assume that all of your purchases, all the stuff you buy, is shipping delivered at place and doesn't show up onto your balance sheet until it hits your warehouse. Another assumption is that your sales ship out Ex Works or FOB, where that inventory leaves your balance sheet as soon as it leaves your shipping dock. Well, now that may not be the way your company operates. You may actually buy things Ex Works or FOB, and they may need to be on your balance sheet when they're on a container or on a truck, but before they're actually sellable. What's going to happen if your CFO realizes that out of the box, this is how Odoo accounting works, and it's 3 months before or 2 months before your scheduled go live? Things aren't going to work very well. So that's an example of why it's very important to have accounting on board from the very beginning and learn and understand these functional requirements. All right. Obvious observation perhaps, but important, Odoo is not QuickBooks, right? It's both good news and bad news, because one of Odoo's strengths is its integration. One of QuickBooks' strengths is that it has a library of reports that have been honed over decades and that have set the expectation for how many American businesses expect to find and interact with their operational and financial data. So if you look at Odoo's accounting menu right now, their accounting reports, it can seem fairly primitive compared to what you're used to in QuickBooks. And in particular, one thing I've seen be a stumbling block for folks is you've got CFOs and controllers whose mind moves at the speed of light and their mouse is navigating through all of the different date range selectors in QuickBooks. Guess how many date range selectors QuickBooks has for its reports? 25. Odoo's got 6. So if you want to use a date range selector that's not on one of those 6, then you're talking about a custom date range, and all of a sudden you've expanded the number of clicks by a factor of 10. That is an opportunity potentially for customization and something people need to know up front. So that leads to then another potential danger zone. Where is my favorite whatever the name is report, right? And there's this idea that in QuickBooks, you go to the reporting module and everything you need is there. But as you may know, Odoo is just different because access to data is not compartmentalized within one reporting app. It's distributed throughout all of Odoo's applications. And in particular, one of the most powerful and potentially underappreciated features of Odoo are things called pivot views. Has anyone seen pivot views? Hopefully everyone's seen pivot views. And I'd also like to give a shout out to the Odoo Community Association, which has 2 fantastic modules, add-on modules, purchase order line menu and sale order line menu, Those are examples of modules that give you visibility into your sale order and your purchase order down to the line item level. And you combine that level of granularity with pivot views, and you can group and sort by information in Odoo in a way that is just orders of magnitude more flexible and powerful than what QuickBooks can offer. So once you show people, okay, your reports are going to look different, but you're going to be accessing them in the context of these different apps. And oh, by the way, did you know that with pivot views, you can do this? And guess what pivot views integrate into? Odoo spreadsheets. So you've unlocked a tremendous amount of power for end users in departments to be able to self-serve in terms of the analytics they need access to. All right, just a quick look. If you haven't seen it before, here is a pivot view. It's a little underwhelming when everything's all compressed. But trust me, when you click plus on there, some amazing things happen. Just trust me on that one. Here's a dashboard, easily customized, that can meet the needs of the operation. So as you go through this functional requirement gathering and you're getting people to understand, okay, my life is going to be different, hopefully better, you are going to come to a very important question. And that important question is basically knowing when and how to customize your Odoo implementation. Because in general, there is going to be an Odoo way to perform pretty much any business process you can imagine. The question is if your particular operation can adapt itself to the Odoo way, or if Odoo needs to mold itself to your business. And that's something that you're just going to have to understand, that yes, there's a short-term cost for doing customizations. There's also a long-term cost to maintaining that customization. And what is the balance that you need in terms of what can change versus where your business can adapt? So some answers are easy, right? If you're currently using QuickBooks and you're having to go through some arcane estimations and reconciliations to deal with landing costs, guess what? You benefit from adopting Odoo's way of managing landed costs. A whole bunch of work you used to have to do, you don't have to do it anymore. However, if you have the operational reality of needing to buy things FOB or XWorks and ship things DAP, well, that's going to require customization because you need your balance sheet and your inventory to reflect your accounting reality. So, at the end of this conversation, you may get to a point where your team says, you know what, we love all of the operational benefits of Odoo, but we're not quite sure we're ready to jump all the way into Odoo for accounting. So good news, there's actually another option to think about. So I'll turn that back over to Oleg.
Let me quickly join here. So in general, what we noticed is that some accountants prefer not to switch immediately from the QuickBooks or from any other software and to work in parallel. And the only thing that they're required is to sync account receivables and payables, not to do double entry in general, just to simplify life. And of course, maybe you know that QuickBooks calculate taxes a little bit different than Odoo itself, even with using a Valero integration. So that's why you need to integrate with the QuickBooks to download all the taxes from there. So there will be no data inconsistency. So in this transition period, you can use actually a connector. We have a created connector, and this was designed specifically for these needs. Some of our customers actually using it already for 3 years or something, and do not transit to QuickBooks. But it's again a decision. But again, it's a very good solution to convince accountant, if he's not convinced, that okay, let's use Odoo. While the rest of the organization will be using Odoo already, then accountant will be the next, I guess. So this solution, I guess, will be the best one to do. At least this is one of the possible ways that everybody not thinking about when talking about migrating to Odoo. Why not doing this in parallel? So, and about data migration, William is specialized here,
So if perhaps your choice is not necessarily to integrate, but actually to do the migration, great. Here is the recommended process for doing this. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Odoo has fantastic data import capabilities, better than pretty much any system I've ever seen or worked with. So it is simple and incredibly powerful to build ETL pipelines. That's ETL stands for extract, transform, and load pipelines to take data from your existing legacy systems and or QuickBooks and or spreadsheets and build them into your new Odoo system. But what's important is that you create a reproducible, automated process to do this ETL work for you. And the corollary to that is not ask your accounting folks to manually manipulate a bunch of spreadsheets into some format, because that's A, it's too much work, B, it's too slow, and most importantly, it introduces the possible for human error. Because data accuracy and integrity is paramount, we want to have an automated, testable, reproducible system to extract from our legacy systems and load it into the new database. Now, during the implementation process, think about what we've already done, right? We've defined our functional requirements, we have features that are and workflows that are being implemented, and now we're in the cycle of repeatedly giving our users, our departments, new builds to look at, ideally on a weekly basis. So we can take a snapshot Sunday evening with the latest copy of the finance data, the latest build of the features from the last week. Monday morning, people walk into work and they're looking at the latest Odoo build, and it looks good in parallel with the current systems they're using. That's how we do validation and user acceptance, because we're looking at the latest data, the latest interface changes, we're surveying the teams, we're going through our functional requirements, and then we get tweaks to do for the next week. So as long as your data migration process is scalable and automated, you can keep up that pace of quick iteration, and then validation and launch is really quite simple, right? It's literally one more repetition. When everyone's happy with the features, the functions, we've looked at the data, this week's build, we're going live, and maybe this is our soft launch where we're kind of test driving this thing at 90%, and then people are ready to go. So I'm a big believer in avoiding stress as much as possible, and when you have a system that is automated and repetitive, we can do enough practice so that the launch is just what we've been doing for the past 8 weeks. All right.
Yeah, actually, that's this QR code. This is our contact details, and this QR code contains the checklist. So it's built in form of questionnaire where you can answer questions yes or no, and at the end, there will be information whether for you it is better to migrate to Odoo completely or use it in parallel. So we are constantly improving this checklist also, and we'll be doing this continuing, so you can scan the QR code. Also, we are recording this video, so later it will be available also additionally. So if any questions that you have, please ask.
So the amount of data you bring over is going to be dependent on the customer. What I've seen be most effective and reasonable is not trying to import closed transactions, but importing open transactions. So, but obviously it's computer science, you can do anything, but the value of bringing over the closed stuff is usually not very high. Yeah.
Yeah, I would add that most of the customers, everybody asking all historical data I need to know. Everybody is saying this. It's no difference. We convince that, okay, let's start with balances and open transactions. And then at the end, they say, no, I don't need historical data. I have a backup, so for audit it's fine, and that's it. But there can be done, it can be done later, actually, if needed. But I don't remember that somebody required this as a result because it was too expensive in general.
Great question. Any others? Anyone? No? All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's have a party.